the jurors, I should say, for the entire reading of the verdicts.
Jim, no emotion. That's so telling and interesting. We also hear that the prosecution has actually held back some of the most gruesome testimony for this penalty phase. What do you know about that?
Right, so the trial is in two phases. Today was the guilt or innocence phase. The next part, which will begin sometime next week, will actually encompass the sentencing phase, at which point this same jury will decide whether Dzhokhar Tsarnaev gets life in prison or a sentence to the death penalty. So the prosecution still has a lot of victims who will be sharing gruesome and sometimes emotional testimony about what happened to them, what happened to their family members at the marathon finish line back in 2013. So for everything this jury has seen up until this point, you could argue it's actually going to get worse, more intense, more emotional as this trial enters its second phase, where the prosecution really hopes to make its case because they want Tsarnaev sentenced to the death penalty.
Jim Armstrong in Boston, thank you so much, Jim.
You're welcome.
In South Carolina, the man who shot the video of a white cop gunning down an unarmed black man is breaking his silence. Faden Santana, a barber at a shop nearby, says he waited to come forward because he feared for his life.
I know. I felt that my life, with this information, might be, like I say, in danger. And I tried I thought about erasing the video and just getting out of the community, Charleston, and leaving someplace else.
Leaving town?
Yes.
Because you're that scared?
Yeah. I knew, like I say, I knew that, especially I saw the video, I knew that the cop didn't do the right way, the right thing. And like I say, I feel kind of scared about that.
Are you still scared?
Yeah. Like I say, but I felt, like I did the right thing for the family.
Officer Michael Slager has been fired and charged with murder, and police dash cam video could be released today. CBS's Vicente Arenas reports.
We haven't seen any video that shows what led to this, but according to the police report, it started with a traffic stop for a broken taillight outside this store. The driver, Walter Scott, took off running after being pulled over. When the video starts, you can see the two men struggling. Officer Slager had apparently fired his taser. As Scott broke away, the taser wires were still attached to him. An object then either falls or is tossed to the ground as Officer Michael Slager draws his gun. Slager said he feared for his life. Slager fires 8 shots, and Scott went down. Moments later, Officer Slager radioed for help. Later on in the video, Slager ran back to pick up an object and then dropped it near Scott's body. Anthony Scott is the victim's brother.
If the video had never surfaced, I don't think we would have had the results as soon as we did with what we have.
Slager has been an officer for 6 years and was with the Coast Guard before that. He had one prior complaint of unnecessary force with a taser. He was exonerated. More video from a police dash cam is expected to be released. The city's mayor told protesters he doesn't know if other officers at the scene will be disciplined. The police report says they tried to administer CPR, but there is no evidence of that on 4 minutes of video. The officer is still in jail, and he could face a death penalty if he's convicted. Vicente Arenas, CBS News,